All right, fellas, we just witnessed Moses Itauma step into the ring against Itauma Whyte. And this one certainly lived up to the intrigue surrounding it because it was more than just another fight. It was a clash of generations, the young rising face of heavyweight boxing, taking on a veteran who has been through wars and earned his stripes in the toughest of divisions going into this fight. The big question on everyone's mind was whether Itauma could once again step up in competition and continue performing at the elite level that we have now come to expect from him. And while most of us predicted a win for Itauma, I don't think many of us truly anticipated the level of dominance he displayed. It was not simply a victory, it was a statement. Now, before diving into the fight itself, we also need to take a moment to acknowledge the card as a whole because, once again, Saudi Arabia put together a very solid event, even if it flew under the radar for a lot of fans around the world. In truth, this fight felt like it belonged in the UK considering it featured two huge British names, but boxing is global and Saudi Arabia has become a massive player in hosting marquee bouts. So while it was a shame not to see it on home soil for the fighters and fans, it was still a gift to even get the matchup. Every time we have seen Itauma in the ring, he has delivered entertainment, and this time was no different. If anything, it was even more emphatic. In fact, the fight didn't even get out of the first round. Itauma ended it with ruthless efficiency. And although we were all expecting either a war or a knockout, it's safe to say not many were predicting it would be over as quickly as it was. The lead up to the fight gave us some red flags, to be honest, because much of the talk around Itauma Whyte wasn't about his boxing skills or strategy, but rather about how he was actually motivated and in great shape. This felt very reminiscent of the talk surrounding Mike Tyson when he fought Jake Paul, because when promoters and pundits are reduced to complimenting an older fighter's physique instead of their form or tools in the ring, it usually means they're no longer at their peak, and sadly that proved to be the case here as soon as the opening bell rang. Itauma looked calm and composed, almost feeling out what version of Whyte he was facing, but it became clear immediately that Whyte no longer had the speed or the footwork to deal with a young, hungry fighter like Itauma. Itauma changed levels a few times, applied pressure, and instantly Whyte looked out of his depth. The youngster teed off while Whyte had no answers, and before long Whyte was down. When he got up, his legs simply weren't under him anymore, and the referee was left with no choice but to call it off after just one round. It was a masterclass in dominance from Itauma, and he may not have even taken a clean punch throughout the entire contest. This was clever matchmaking from Queensberry. Not because it was expected to produce a competitive war, but because it gave Itauma another big name on his resume at a time when Whyte at 37 was unlikely to turn back the clock. It was a fight designed to build Itauma's profile and credibility, and it worked perfectly. This win cements Itauma's #1 ranking with the WBO, and soon after the PV Hunter fight, he is likely to be #1 with the WBA as well. That means within the next 12 to 18 months, Itauma is in a prime position to challenge for a world title and pick whichever path suits him best. So of course the conversation now turns to what comes next. And the most obvious name being mentioned is Alexander Usyk. The idea of Itauma fighting Usyk might sound outrageous, given Usyk's experience and brilliance, but it is a genuine possibility. Ring Magazine has even reported that this is the fight some parties are pushing for, and Usyk's strong ties with Turki Al-Sheikh and Saudi Arabia mean it's a bout that could be made. However, I personally don't think Itauma is ready for that step. Usyk is one of the most skilled heavyweights of this generation, a man who thrives in dragging opponents into deep waters with his movement, stamina, and technical mastery. Itauma, for all his promise, has yet to face real adversity in the ring. We haven't seen him hurt or tested against elite opposition. He's looked phenomenal, but largely against slower, less mobile heavyweights, who allowed him to dictate the pace against someone like Usyk, who matches his speed and exceeds him in experience and ring IQ. Itauma could easily find himself in trouble. It's a fight that may come, but it would be far better for his career if it were delayed until Usyk retires, which could happen in the next year or two, because if Itauma suffers a defeat now, the hype train may derail. Whereas if he waits, he can pick up belts as they scatter and build toward becoming the face of the division and alternative fantasy fight that fans would love to see is Itauma versus Anthony Joshua commercially. This would be huge. Joshua remains one of the biggest names in global boxing. Any fight involving him captures worldwide attention. Itauma fighting Joshua would elevate his profile instantly. However, it's unlikely to ever happen because both men share the same trainer. Ben Davison, for that fight to occur, one would have to leave the camp, and that simply doesn't seem realistic. Add in the fact that Joshua is not aligned with Queensberry. while Itauma is, and the politics make it nearly impossible to arrange another option that makes a lot of sense, is Deontay Wilder. Wilder is far from the fighter he once was, but he remains a globally recognized name and carries knockout power which would make the fight intriguing. Even if his best days are behind him, he's a free agent looking for a big payday. Itauma wants another fight this year. Saudi Arabia loves blockbuster headliners, and Itauma versus Wilder fits perfectly. It would be another big name on his resume, a step up in perceived danger, and an opportunity to further build his star power internationally. That would be the logical next step before he faces someone truly elite. As for Dillian Whyte, the writing is on the wall. His career should be over at this point. At 37, he no longer has the speed reflexes or tools to compete at the top level. Continuing on will only lead to more losses like this one and tarnish his legacy. Whyte has always been a warrior with determination and grit, but this is the moment to call it a day and protect his health. As for the co-main event, it deserves mention as well. Nick Ball faced Sam Goodman in what was essentially a battle between two men who see themselves as future challengers to Naoya Inoue, but in reality, neither is quite on that level. Ball won by decision, though the scorecards were wider than many expected. Ball now finds himself in an interesting position because he needs a real challenge moving forward. Fighters like Espinoza, Fulton, or Carrington would be perfect matchups that could produce fireworks. But the reality is that many in his camp seem to be waiting for Inoue to eventually move up in weight for the big payday. Inoue has hinted at moving after a potential Nakatani fight, but that could be another year or more away, meaning Ball could be stuck waiting if he does not pursue unification bouts. In the meantime, unfortunately, I doubt those fights happen anytime soon. But time will tell. Ultimately, this Saudi card provided us with another showcase of boxing's new generation against its fading veterans. Itauma proved once again he is the real deal, and possibly the brightest young heavyweight on the planet right now. But the question of timing looms large. Should he be pushed toward Usyk immediately, or should his team be more patient, letting him gather experience and build before tackling that kind of mountain? Only time will give us the answer, but what we know for sure is that Itauma is on the fast track to the top, and every fight he takes from here on out will be crucial in defining his career trajectory.